Welcome to the Travelman Podcast. I'm your host, Ben, and thank you for coming aboard again. And if you're new to the podcast plane and you're joining me for the first time, well then, hello and thank you for listening. You'll be in seat 57A for your imaginary flight today. And on today's podcast, I was live on YouTube with Chris Raney, my San Diegan mate from Yellow Productions. We did this live stream around 2 weeks ago on 12 more reasons to travel to Australia. This is our second live stream on our Australia series. So sit back and enjoy our conversation on Australia.
12 reasons why you should visit Australia as told to you by an Aussie. I'm Chris, this is Yellow Productions. I do travel guides that are fun, informative, entertaining. I am not an Aussie, but we've got Ben from Melbourne, Australia. He's going to be joining us to help talk about this. This is part 2 of our series. And why are we talking to Ben? Well, A, he's a really cool guy, and B, those 16-hour flights to Australia just kill me for breaking out these series. So Ben is coming to us from the magic of the interwebs, Australia to the U.S. back again. Ben, welcome.
Welcome. Thank you. Thank you, Chris. How are you?
I am very well. I love to see that you're sporting yellow today.
Thank you. I didn't want to wear the Travelcast top because I felt I'd be doing some dishonest, you know what I mean? Someone help me out.
Yeah, advertising for something else, which is totally cool. So for those of you,
exactly right.
Yeah, for those of you who don't know, Ben does have his own podcast. It's called the Travelman Podcast. If you want to check out more of Ben, you'll find links in the description below. And in advance, I'll say this is a live stream, so if you're on the live stream, feel free to ask questions. Actually, do ask questions because it's a live stream. We want to hear it. And by the way, if Ben's video looks a little choppy, I don't know, there must be like some turtles munching on that undersea cable from Australia to the U.S. All right, so
Remy.
Yeah, so we're going to start with the first reason to visit Australia, and that is Sydney Harbour. Sydney Harbour right here, as you can see it on the screen. You're looking at the Opera House. The Opera House, it's like the icon of Australia. And of course, that Opera House, I didn't realize it until I went to Sydney, but it actually has a bar underneath. The whole side of it along that inner harbour is actually a bar, which I think is nothing more Australian than that. So, Ben, I'm curious. Have you been to an opera in Sydney?
I've never been to an opera full stop. I've been to the Sydney Opera House, but I haven't been to the opera. I haven't drunk in the bar either, Chris. The Opera House is really neat. It's a great location to check out. It's within walking distance from many sites like the Sydney Harbour Bridge, more so the Rocks and Circular Quay. That's close to it, as well as there's a really nice botanical garden. Spend a bit of time in there. It's nice.
So the Sydney Harbour Bridge, they've also got this like bridge climb thing. Have you done the bridge climb in Sydney?
I haven't. I should do it. Let's do it together, Chris.
Okay.
When you go back to Sydney, I'll meet you there. We'll do it together.
That sounds good. For those of you who aren't familiar with the bridge climb, this Sydney Harbour Bridge, like, people go on top of these bridges to like maintain it, right? But you can essentially do the same thing as a tourist. You can climb on this bridge. I think it's something crazy, like $200 or $300. Ben, what
the views of the Sydney?
Go ahead.
I was going to. Thank you, mate. Yeah, I was going to say the views of the Sydney Opera House from the view of the Harbour Bridge from the Opera House is it's great. Take your camera, have your camera handy, take some photos. It's great because you can see, actually take video too, because you can see the Manly ferry, which I talked about last time. You can see that coming in and out. You can see all the other ferries coming in and out. Really cool. It's really cool.
Andrew says the bridge climb is very expensive. Andrew, have you done the bridge climb? I'm curious. Katila, the Hun freedom fighter, says Australia is on her bucket list.
Yeah, it's a great place to go. Definitely come.
Excellent.
You got Sydney, you got Melbourne, you got everywhere.
That's excellent.
I'm so partial to Melbourne.
We've got Nick on, a fellow Australian, joining us from Perth. Nick, welcome.
G'day, Nick.
All right. So let's go on to reason number 2 to visit Australia. The second reason to visit Australia is because it is reasonably priced. I've found Australia's pretty reasonably priced when it comes to hotels and food. So Ben, I'm curious, is that just me, or is Australia actually reasonably priced?
It's priced. It's probably reasonably priced for yourself and probably UK. Our dollar is obviously not as strong, but I think for us it's getting a little bit more expensive. As Australians to live in Australia, definitely Melbourne's getting expensive, and Sydney's always been expensive, and the other cities are catching up as well. So it's not. I mean, it's reasonably priced to a point, but it is expensive as well.
And what part's expensive? What part's cheap and what part's expensive? What do you think is cheap and expensive in Australia?
Housing is expensive in Australia. You can't buy a house for under, well, maybe 550, 600,000, unless it's far out of the city, CBD, or downtown. So just housing in Australia is very expensive. Obviously, food's okay depending on where you go. Hotels is kind of similar to anywhere else. What else? I would say more housing is the most expensive thing in Australia. To buy a house and have a bit of land, that's expensive.
Well, so the good news is most people that will be traveling there won't be buying a house. But Brandon Torres asks you if you've ever been if you've ever been to the Melbourne F1 Grand Prix.
I haven't, but I've watched it on the telly a lot. I watch it on the TV quite a bunch. It's good. Like the start and the end, only because at the start I want to see a crash, and at the end I want to see who wins. So there you go.
I think car racing is all about crashes. So Grovel asks, what's the best time of year to visit Australia weather-wise?
Probably spring, I'd say, because in summer it's way too hot. Definitely if you're in Melbourne or Adelaide or Perth, you're going to get really high temperatures, maybe 35 plus, 9-day, 41 is common, 42. In Melbourne, even Tasmania, that doesn't usually get the heat and the hot weather. That's getting very hot weather at the moment.
Tasmania, is that where the Tasmanian devil is from?
And the tiger, yeah, exactly. And then as you go further north, you're going to get all the Mon's going to get the tropical rain, which there's flooding up and there's fires down south. So I would avoid Australia in summer. Go in probably spring. Autumn's nice too.
Paul gave us the price of the bridge climb. 2 adults is $736. Wow, that is expensive. OC Girl asks, how are the food prices in Australia compared to the US?
Food prices would be probably pretty similar, although in the US you can get some pretty cheap food, but I think the food, this is going to sound controversial, Chris, but the food is better in Australia.
That is controversial. Why is the food better in Australia?
You're getting me with these hard-hitting questions.
I know, that's what I am. Actually, we're going to talk about food number 5, so we can hold that question. We'll go to
let me think about it.
All right. Andrew said Australia has a lot of things that can kill you. Very scary. Yes, it seems like everything in Australia is trying to kill you. Paul Bramford says what he loves about Australia, and this makes it cheaper, is that Australia has absolutely no tipping.
There's no tipping. That's true. No tipping at all.
Catilla, the Hun freedom fighter, says, I have researched Australia extensively. I didn't know housing is that expensive. Why is that? There is so much available territory. No? Question mark?
There's a lot of area available, but it's unavailable to build in. desert or bushland, which you just can't develop houses there. There is housing in outer Melbourne, which is affordable. You are too far away from the city, where a lot of people like to be close to the city, and it just doesn't make sense to live so far away from the city, because most people need the city to get into work or to get their groceries or things like that, you know?
Yeah, so I think I would answer that to say that Australians like to cuddle together for warmth, and because they like to cuddle together for warmth, everybody lives in the cities, and so yes, everybody wants to live in the city, and I think it's not an issue of available land.
Different in America.
I don't know that it's different in America as a whole, because there's certainly places like Albuquerque, New Mexico, where like everybody lives in Albuquerque and nobody lives anywhere else. But I mean, as an outsider, I would observe, like looking at Melbourne, Australia, when I went there, like there was like an influx of Asian immigrants, and those are usually the issues we have here in the U.S. Right? It's like the outside money that comes in that then drives the prices up, and whereas everybody want to live, they come there because they want to live in the city instead of cities that get expensive. So I think
that's true.
I think if Catilla wants to live in the outback, it'd probably be cheap, right?
Yeah, you'd have to live in a country town.
Yeah.
Which, whoops, that wobbled. Yeah, so you'd have to live in a country town, or only option if you wanted to have cheaper housing. Definitely not live in capital cities.
Leslie asks, what are good foods to try in Australia? We're going to talk about that in the food number, which is coming up. Yippee says, the redback funnel web and other spiders scare me. Ever know anyone that was bitten by one? Smiley face. And I just want to say, before you answer that question, I'm really proud of myself on this live stream for having new looking the comments are different looking. That's pretty exciting. And I figured out how to get the emoticons in there. So last time when people used like emojis, it was like a question mark. And now we get to see Yippie's emoticon that he used. So
I'm really proud of you.
Thank you, Ben. I'll give myself a pat on the back. Both sides. And a rub on the tummy.
I nearly got bitten by a redback spider. I nearly got bitten by one. I was probably an inch away. Oh, actually even less than that. I was foraging through some liquid amber leaves, just tidying up someone's garden. And then, oh, there it is. There's a spider. And I was just that close. It's probably about that close to the spider. So very close.
So what's the issue with a redback spider? Like, what would happen to you if you got bitten by one?
I think I'd probably only get very sick. And I'd go to the hospital straight away. And then probably, I think they've got an anti-venom. And take that.
Like sick. Like what is, right. what is that sick?
Vomiting, nausea. So that's generally what happens when you get bitten by something that's venomous. That's got toxins. They shut down the body. So you'd be sore, it'd be painful, you'd be throwing up a lot. And if you're an older person or a younger person, like a child, you're more likely to have it be a more serious event, like perhaps death.
So we should stay away from red spiders, is what it sounds like.
Seems like you got to stay away from Australia, because if it ain't the spiders, it's something else. Some crazy shark that will bite you, a crocodile, a kangaroo that will get in you.
Andrew apparently says that Netflix has a show called 76 Deadly Things in Asia, so we could probably rattle off that list if we wanted to. Jazz This said, no tips in Australia. Interesting. I didn't know that. Zygmunt.
Nah, no tips.
Yeah. Zygmunt really likes the hard-hitting questions, so...
I don't like them.
All right. Well, Zygmunt, let me know what hard-hitting questions you want to ask Ben. Chinmay says... What do you mean there's no tipping? If I go to a bar and tip, say, 20% of pint of beer, does the bartender not accept it?
Oh, he would accept it, but it's not common practice. We don't need to have tips because we've got what's a term for it? We have enough.
A living wage.
Well, the bartender would make enough money. Yeah, wage. Yeah, so he wouldn't need the tip to cover anything. Because I know, like in America, like the tips get added to the wage or something like that. Is that right?
Theoretically,
you don't make enough money.
Yeah,
something like that. Well, in Australia, it's the opposite. We make fairly good money, so you don't need to tip, I guess. Yeah, but there's still tipping jars, so you can still tip. Just don't tip a lot because you don't need to tip.
Yeah, I think for me, my observation is it's not really a culture thing. Like Australians don't tip a lot, and so the waiters don't accept tips. It's not like in the U.S. it is like a tip is part of the price, and if you don't tip, you're a jerk. Yeah. Whereas in Australia, it's like, oh, if the service was like really super outstanding, then you give like a little bit extra. Yeah. But I think that's also a different cultural difference, say, Australia versus Japan, where in Japan, they wouldn't want your tip. They would feel insulted if you gave it to them because they're like, dude, I don't need your charity. You know, like I work for a living, right?
Well, I guess that's similar to Australia. We don't need the tip either. So, yeah, you don't, if you're an or Canadian or someone that usually has to tip wherever you are, whoops, sorry about that. Then you wouldn't have to tip in Australia. So keep your money in your pocket. Buy another beer or
stop tipping
something.
The camera, Ben. I think you're tipping it too much. Tipping, you know.
Am I tipping the camera?
Yeah, yes. Andrew Hibble asks, what's the best way to deal with jet lag coming from Vancouver, LA? And I'll say, Ben, as someone, like, you have a lot of long flights, because to go from Australia to anywhere, it's a long way. So how do you deal with jet lag?
Yeah. I would say that I stay up as long as I can the day before and try and acclimatize my body so it's at the same time. So if you can physically do that, if you can try and go to sleep when you'd be sleeping overseas, try that. And just wake up in the middle of the night. No, you can try that. Or while you're in the airplane, I think most of the times they'll dim the lights when it's supposed to be dark or when you're supposed to be sleeping. So you just follow the rules, because I think a lot of the times the airlines try and make it easier for you when you do arrive at your destination.
So if the lights are off, go to sleep is the moral of that story.
Yeah, go to sleep. Don't watch videos. Yeah, so try and go to sleep because they're doing it for a reason.
Okay, let's go on
and then if you get to your...
Let's go on to number 3. And I don't mean to interrupt you. We just have our, we don't have our jet lag. We have our Australia-US lag. And I forgot to put up my cool numbers. I can't reach all the way there. Wait, maybe I need to... Okay, now I can reach all the way there.
There you go.
This is hard. Number 3. There we go. Number 3. All right. So number 3 is the Botanical Gardens. So the third reason to visit Australia is for Botanical Gardens. Right here, you're looking at a shot of the Botanical Gardens in Sydney. But Ben took me to the Botanical Gardens in Melbourne. We did a whole video on it, and there's like totally a big thing in Australia. So Ben, tell us about Botanical Gardens in Australia.
Well, they're a lovely place to go, walk around, relax, get away from the city life. It's something I actually really enjoy doing, Chris, is going to a botanical garden. You can feel like you're in the middle of nature. Why?
Yeah, why do you love the botanical gardens? You said you love them, but why do you love them?
I love them because I personally love gardens. I'm a gardener back home in Melbourne, and I've always loved gardens. It's one of the most relaxing things for me to be strolling through a garden path, looking at different plants, looking at the landscape, enjoying it, taking it in. And then you can be just outside that city and still be in a beautiful, lush garden like Central Park. That's not much of a botanical garden, but it's an amazing forest in the middle of Manhattan Island, and I love that. I just think it's beautiful.
So for those of you who didn't know, and it totally makes sense, if you've been following Ben on the channel for a long time, his nickname used to be Landscaper Ben before it became the Travelman Podcast, and that's because, as Ben said, he is in the landscaping business.
I am.
Yeah. So what's your favorite botanical garden in Australia?
Oh, good question. I'd say my favourite garden would be maybe Sydney. I really love the Royal Botanic Garden in Sydney. I like that it connects us with the Opera House, connects you with Woolloomooloo, which is on the right-hand side, walking through the garden towards the Opera House. And I love all the different gardens. I love how it's the landscape undulates. It slopes up and slopes down. It's got different type of gardens. You've got natural forest gardens. You've got tropical houses. You've got succulent gardens. It's just a beautiful it's a beautiful garden to meander through. I remember going there about a couple of years ago. Great there. I love that footage.
Such an excellent word. All right.
Thank you. Yeah, meander. But I just love that garden. There's a few others that I love as well. Obviously, the Royal Botanic Gardens in Melbourne, where I filmed that stuff with Chris. I was filming that, so watch that on Chris's channel. That's a great video. The Brisbane Botanic Gardens in Mount Cootha, that is fantastic for more tropical-inspired plants. You got your frangipanis and other plants like that. That's a great garden to walk through. And it's just there. A couple of the gardens I really enjoy. There's some others that are really nice too, but they would be my top three. I would say in Australia would be the Royal Botanic Gardens, the Royal Botanic Garden in Sydney, and the Brisbane Botanical Gardens in Mount Cootha. They're all fantastic.
Melbourne, Sydney, Mount Cootha. All right, very Brisbane. Good. Tyler
Brisbane.
Walks says, thank you, Brisbane, says he loves Australia. So, there we go.
Australia loves him.
And Brandon says, today we are putting Ben on the spot. By the way, if you all wonder why I keep sticking my head down, it's because I'm looking at my iPad that has all of your comments on it. Yeah, and this is cool. Here a little bit of behind the scenes. This is how they all get put on the screen. So everybody's got like a comment right there. And let's see, who goes next? Andrew Hibble right here. Andrew Hibble asks, Ben, have you ever been to Canada?
I've flown into Montreal. I was very sick on the plane, vomiting everywhere. I was flying United.
United made you sick, huh? Ben knows I fly I'm like a totally United flyer, so he loves to rag on United. I'm not going to defend them because I don't think they're that fantastic. So they just go where I often want to go.
They're as good as Spirit.
Yeah. So what do you think?
Spirit.
What do you think about Canada, Ben?
Only been to the airport, but great burger at the airport. Fantastic.
All right.
Canadian bacon, the best.
OC Girl says, just a random question. What do you think is the most common misconception about Australia or Australians?
That we all live in the outback, and that kangaroos run down the street, like the kangaroo that was running down the street earlier today.
So they don't run down the street; they just walk down the street, or maybe they skip down the street.
They walk with their shopping. They walk with their shopping.
What about shrimps on the Barbi? Do you guys throw shrimps on the Barbi all the time?
No, never. That's not a thing. Shrimps on the Barbi is not a thing.
It's too bad. Andrew asks, Ben, have you ever gone shark diving?
No, but I'm going to do it now. Thank you.
You should.
I think Chris and I are going to do shark diving when he's in next. Or
Good.
We'll have to go to South Australia for that. Because that's where you do the shark diving.
We'll do the bridge climb, and then we'll go shark diving.
Yeah, okay, let's do that.
Okay. OC Girl asks, where's your kitty cat, Ben?
It's outside the door. Hey, wait, I'm really good at this. Just give me short things, and I'll just give you short, answers. Where's your kitty cat? It's out the door.
Good. Okay, here's one.
Come on.
Cool one says, Ben, why does everyone in Australia say, that dingo ate my baby?
Okay, no one says that. Next.
All right. Brandon says, there was a kangaroo on your street today, Ben?
No, it was a joke. Next.
Catilla says, So did you two coordinate wearing your yellow shirts? Lol.
Always.
Always. Good. Because Ben is a true partner and fan. So I brought out the yellow shirt when we were filming our earlier series, and Ben wears it whenever he's on. I think it's super awesome. So Andrew...
Yeah, look, I have to support.
Andrew then asks, did the dingo eat your baby?
No, but did it eat yours?
Okay, good. All right. That's all the questions for now. So we're going to move on to number 4. Number 4. The fourth,
fast 5.
Yeah, the fourth reason to visit Australia is to visit the Great Barrier Reef. And so I hear it's like some pretty big reef. Or is it a great reef? A big reef? A great reef? Anyway, what makes it so great? Anyway.
Because it's big. That's nice. It's a great reef. Look, Chris, I've heard that it is... Well, I've seen with my own eyes that it is dying. So they can say whatever they like, but I think it's not going to be around for a long time. If you're keen to come to the Great Barrier Reef, keen to come to Australia, come and see it before it's totally bleached out, because it is getting bleached. I was there a couple of years ago and a year or two before that, and there was a remarkable difference in colour.
And so were you scuba diving or snorkeling, or how were you under the water?
Well, I was on this reef called Agincourt Reef. It's one of the furthest reefs out from mainland Australia. It's probably about 30, 40 something kilometres out, and it is has quite a deep shelf, so you can look over the shelf and scare the bejesus out of you. But yeah, this reef is one of the places where they send a lot of these snorkelers. They actually send you on a couple of different reefs, but yeah, I could see in certain sections that where it should have had this coral was just white.
Well, that's
areas.
Well, that's no good. So, this Great Barrier Reef, like, how big is it? When we say it's big, how big is it?
That's a really good question. It's about 2,300 kilometres in length. So it's nearly the whole of the Queensland coast, bar like Brisbane, and some other areas.
That's pretty big. Is it like? Can you see it from space?
Apparently, you can see it from space. No, you can. You can see it from space. It gets. Well, I'll give you some. I'll give you some stats. All right. So it's the largest reef on the planet. It's the largest reef on the planet. It's seen from space. It gets 2 million visitors a year. It stretches 2,500 kilometres down the Queensland coast, as I said. It spans about 350,000 square kilometres. Its average depth is about 32 metres, so that's in between the reefs. Can go as deep as 2,000 plus metres deep. And there's 2,900 different reefs and 600 islands that span that whole length of the Great Barrier Reef.
So the Great Barrier Reef is not, in fact, just one reef. It's 2,900 reefs. No,
yeah, it's like 3,000 reefs or whatever it is. Yeah, 2,900 reefs, so it's crazy. It's a huge reef. There are areas where it's still quite colourful and beautiful. So don't think what I said. Don't get scared off by what I've said. More so, the reef is still gorgeous, but there is another reef on the other side of Australia called the Ningaloo Reef, and that gets hardly the amount of visitors that the Great Barrier Reef does. I think it's probably the same size, or maybe it's slightly smaller, and it is gorgeous, apparently. I haven't been yet, but I do plan on going.
So, Yippee wants to know, the reef is dying. Is that from warmer oceans or pollution?
It's from warmer oceans. The oceans are getting warmer. The coral needs to survive in temperatures between, I think it was 19 and 21 or 22 degrees. Maybe it's 20 and 23 degrees. And they've been getting 27, 28 degree water, which is going to kill off the reef. And that's what it's been doing.
So all this talk about death. OC Girl wants cuteness in. She wants to know if the
bring
kitty
the cat
can come in. Maybe as we get to the end.
Grab him.
Or if you want to grab him now, your choice.
Up to OC Girl.
OC Girl, do you want Ben to bring the kitty in? Andrew asks you a hard-hitting question. Ben, have you ever wrestled an alligator?
Yes.
Sweet. That's awesome. All right. Okay. Let's go on.
Alligators. God, I love them.
Let's go on to number 5. The 5th reason to visit Australia, and a lot of people are asking about this, was about food, about Australian food. So I thought it was only reasonable to have a video about shrimps on a Barbi, right? Because, Ben, you told me that everybody puts shrimps on a barbecue. Do you know how hard it is to get a shot of shrimps on a barbecue? But there we go. So, what is it about the Australian food that you think is awesome and that people would enjoy visiting Australia?
Well, I think if you come to Australia, you will eat some of the best multicultural type of food ever. So you will be able to eat food from every part of the world. And that's what makes Australia ideal, especially in our capital cities, especially in Melbourne and Sydney and probably Brisbane and maybe Adelaide. So I'm not quite sure about Perth and others. But I know that we are very culturally diverse, and the food that you will eat here, you won't eat anywhere else. So it's not necessarily Australian food. I call it world food.
World food. Right. So, and this is always funny. Like when I go to Australia, I always eat like a lot of Malaysian food and things like that. And people are like, when we did our video on cheap eats in Melbourne, a lot of the stuff I have in there is it's Malaysian food, it's Indian food, and people are like, where's all the Australian food? So Ben, where's all the Australian food?
I don't know. It must have been left on the boat with the convicts.
It must have been. Yeah, the convicts didn't do a really good job at cooking, huh? Those probably weren't their skills.
I tell you what average Australians eat. Steak. I know it sounds pretty boring.
Yeah.
Steak and chips and fish and chips. We eat a lot like the English.
So
average.
Steak.
I'm calling average Australian.
Okay. So Ben said steak and chips, which would be steak and potatoes, right? Like, I mean, a certain type of like French fry. It's not a French fry, but yeah.
Similar, but different.
Yeah, I think we don't have quite so many words for it here to make the different distinctions. Brandon Torres says, get the kitty. And OC Girl also says, yes, get the kitty.
Okay, looks like I'm getting the kitty. All right, let's see how quick I am. Because I've got to find the little bugger. Okay. Hold on 1 second.
All right.
So Chris, just carry on without me.
Yeah, I guess that means I've got to kill time. So, let's see. OC Girl, she mentioned about Malaysian food. So there's not much Malaysian food in LA, even though it's a diverse city too. It is really interesting. One of the things that OC Girl and I like to eat quite a bit, and I mentioned this earlier as a thing I often get in Australia, is laksa. Laksa is a Malaysian kind of like coconut curry soup base that typically has some seafood like prawns and shrimp and that sort of stuff. And in Los Angeles, I think there's maybe one restaurant you can get laksa at. Ben, do we have a kitty?
We do.
Oh, look at that. And for those viewers who didn't see your kitty before in part 1, what's your kitty's name?
Oops, sorry. His name is Remy, and he is a beautiful little man. I gave him a French name because he looks like a little Frenchman. He's got a little goatee, which is right there. He's very cute. He's still only about 3 old, or maybe less. But he's so cute.
How old did you say he was?
Bite me. About 3 months.
3 months old. Very cute. The cuteness factor for our live stream has just gone up about tenfold.
Yeah, he's beautiful. But he likes to bite. He's so naughty.
That's no good.
No, it's not good at all. Oh.
Catilla asks, can he say, that's not a knife, this is a knife? And I'm not sure if Catilla's asking if Ben or Remy can say that.
Okay. Remy, can you say that? No. can't. Sorry, Dad. I just want to bite your hand. That's not a knife. This is a knife.
Nice. Nice. Very good, Ben.
Thank you.
OC Girl asks, has Remy gotten himself into any more trouble?
Yeah, he got strangled the other day, and I had to cut him free.
What did he get strangled by?
I put it on my face. Well, he got strangled by our laundry hamper basket. It's got like got loops where you carry it with. Yeah, carry it with something like that. And he looped his neck. He looped around his neck and his arms, so just around this part. Everyone knows what a neck is, don't they? And he was really struggling. It was last week. And, I heard him cry out, and then it was him getting himself suffocated by this nylon, or actually cotton rope, in a sense. So I had to carry the poor little guy.
Well, that's no good.
But he's okay now. He's fine now.
It's good you saved him. Andrew asks, Vegemite, is it good or is it bad?
It's pretty good. I like it. And Remy likes it too.
Does Remy really like it?
Yeah, Remy eats anything.
All right. Does Remy eat Hungarian food? Nora wants to know if there's any Hungarian restaurants in Australia.
Well, I can tell you about a very funny Hungarian restaurant, which is kind of close to me, kind of not. It's in a suburb of Melbourne called Clifton Hill. And if anyone from Melbourne is listening, they know Clifton Hill, they know that there was once a Hungarian Indian restaurant, but it's now closed because they never had anyone going there. No one wanted to eat Hungarian Indian food, which really surprises me. I thought that was something that would be, the type of food that, people would want to eat.
That's a very interesting combination. There's a restaurant that recently opened near us that's a Indian Chinese restaurant. It's like Chinese food, but Indian style Chinese food. But this next question leads us into number 6, which Mark Torres asks, what are some good Australian beers? And please don't say Foster. But don't answer that question yet until I intro number 6, which is beer. The 6th reason to visit Australia is for beer. I've heard Australia makes great beer, and it's evident that Australians like to drink it. So, Ben, tell us more about Australian beer.
Well, it's tasty. It's refreshing. It's crisp. Hold on, just putting the cat down. I think we actually make quite a good amount of craft beer, which is probably similar to San Diego and parts of Southern California. They're really into their craft beer as well. And so are we in Australia. We love our craft beer, but we do love our huge manufactured beers, not Foster's, because that's more mass-produced and made for the Indian market and overseas market. We have Foster's here, but no one drinks it. If you were to drink something that's mass-produced here, it would be like a Cascade, Carlton Lager. It would be Victoria Bitter. It would be Tui's New. It would be 4X Gold. Stuff like that. So those beers are all palatable, but not very nice.
Brandon wants to know if there's anything close to Germany's Oktoberfest in Australia.
It's called Australia Fest, and it's awesome.
It's every day, right?
Every day, Australia Fest. Also, we love to eat lamb in Australia as well.
Interesting.
I don't know where that came from. Remy, stop eating stuff.
What's Remy eating?
I don't know. Something. It looks like something that shouldn't be in his mouth. Little. Oi! Oh, gross.
Oi! Not the real Jameski wants me to ask a question, but not the real Jameski, you're asking it, so not the real Jameski's question is, are there any ziplining activities?
Not that I know of. 1 second, Chris. I just got to get this thing out of his mouth.
While Ben's doing that, let's take a look at this wonderful beer here again, as it's on this nice black background. Soren has an answer about beer, which Soren says, Tasmanian beer Cascade is the best beer. And Paul Bramford also answered the question about whether there's an Oktoberfest, saying that there's Schützenfest Adelaide 2019.
Oh, cool. Oh, yeah, that's probably up in the hill, in the Adelaide Hills, where there's a German town called Harndorf, which is really cool. I love Harndorf. Yeah. So
Andrew wants to know if you've been skiing in New Zealand ever.
no, but I went whitewater rafting in Queenstown once and made the boat capsize. Is that the word?
Capsize. Yeah, that's not good.
Well, the boat nearly capsized, and we got it to not capsize.
All right,
If that makes any sense.
Yes, you're a good ship
It was
captain.
it was in an eddy, and I thought it was going to flip, but it didn't. So that's good.
And then you were going to get swallowed by a whale and live in his stomach. Maybe that was a fairy tale. Okay, number 7, Tanner Wilson leads us into this one. Tanner Wilson is asking us where you can find great wine. And so Australia, actually, I hear is getting into the wine game. So Ben, do Australians like wine or beer better?
Macca's.
They like McDonald's better?
Australians probably like wine, should say like beer. Australians are really well known to love the drink. We love alcohol in Australia. And I do talk a lot on my podcast how much I love enjoying beers and cocktails at pool bars. If you heard one of my last episodes of my podcast, I talk all about how I enjoy, and I lump myself into all of Australia, how all of us love to have a drink and we all love pool bars. So go and listen to that if you want. But the wine industry is huge in Australia. We sell a lot of our wines overseas. Some of our best wines go to China. The Chinese love our red wine. A few areas that are known for their good wine in Australia are Victoria, New South Wales, South Australia, Western Australia, and Tasmania. Queensland also has an area called the Granite Belt area. I can go into more depth of areas if you want, Chris, if we've got time.
Yippee.
So, but yeah, wine is a big thing in Australia.
Yippee has a question which is related to wine, which asks if you can drink the water from the tap. Kind of related to wine.
You can definitely you can drink the water from the tap anywhere in Australia, for sure. Absolutely, it's good quality.
Action Jackson has a question for me. He asks, Chris, have you tried a meat pie? I absolutely have. In Australia, in England. There's like if you've ever had like a chicken pot pie, that's pretty much what Australian meat pies taste like. Ben, do you have anything else you'd like to add about meat pies?
No, I don't really like them.
All right.
They're not.
That's a ringing endorsement from Ben on meat pies. Q2 says, Ben, where is it better to live, Sydney or Melbourne? And you better say Sydney.
Sydney.
All right, good.
Melbourne.
Not the real Jameski says, I have a friend going to Australia for vacation. Are there any activities you would suggest?
Wow. Well, what part of Australia is he going to? Then maybe I can suggest something.
Okay, answer that
really
question.
Depends where
Not the real Jameski, and then you'll get an answer. Bradman asks, what do you think is the best hotel or motel in Sydney?
Good question. Chris, you can answer that one. You're in Sydney recently.
I really liked the...
How about the Marriott?
Well, I am a Marriott stayer. There was the Marriott, and then there was the Sheraton. There's like a park in Sydney called... What's it called? Like Hyde Park or something? Is there a Hyde Park in Sydney? Yeah, so there's like a Sheraton on the park. It was really nice.
Oh, yeah. Sheraton on the park. Yeah, I must admit, to be honest, I can't answer that question because I just don't travel to Sydney enough and stay in hotels in Sydney or motels enough to know. So unfortunately, I can't answer that. That's why I let Chris answer that question.
So not
he was in there. He was in Sydney.
Yeah, so not the real Jameski says his friend is going to Sydney. And so in that case, I think one of the things, and we talked about it in part 1 of this, but if your friend likes the beach, would be to take the Manly Beach ferry over to Manly Beach, which is one of Ben's favorite beaches. Yeah.
That's one of my favorite beaches, Manly Beach. So take the ferry from Circular Quay and go to Manly Beach. Well, look, Bondi Beach is pretty nice as well. I see Kutu has said Sydney's better, come to Bondi Beach. Yeah, Bondi Beach is nice, but it's full of bodybuilders and people like that. I mean, yeah, that's nice if you look great. But if you're someone like me that's a bit chubby and maybe not that attractive...
Jazz, this wants to know if Australia is a more walkable country than the US, and is there good public transportation?
Public transport in Australia is pretty crappy. It's not that great. And Australia in a whole is probably not walkable, but our cities are quite walkable. Melbourne's walkable. You can definitely walk around Melbourne. You can definitely walk around Sydney. Sydney would probably be my favourite place to walk around. Brisbane's quite walkable. Adelaide's definitely walkable. Perth's walkable. Hobart's walkable. Darwin I haven't been to, and Canberra's quite walkable.
I think...
Yeah, no, it's definitely walkable.
What's kind of cool about Melbourne is Melbourne has the world's largest streetcar network. So these trams on the streets, there are more miles of track in Melbourne than any other city that has streetcars. And you would think that that would be someplace in Europe, but no, it is actually in Australia.
The problem with that is that the trams have to compete with the traffic on the road, which the traffic in Melbourne is quite bad.
Yes,
especially on school days.
I agree with you that those streetcars are slow, but I think for people who aren't living there and like aren't going to work, like people who are tourists and don't care how long it takes, then it's like, oh, this is pretty neat. And what's also really neat, I think, about the streetcars in Melbourne is they're free in the city centre. Yeah. Which is
Zone 1, I think.
Yeah.
Free. Yeah.
Clement has joined in from Singapore, and Clement says, Happy Chinese New Year. Yeah, that's right.
Happy Chinese New Year.
It is the year of the boar, or the pig.
Pig, yeah.
All right.
My sister-in-law is Chinese. Yeah, we had Chinese New Year.
I'm glad you didn't say your sister-in-law was a pig, speaking of the New Year. I said that, you didn't. I'm just saying I'm glad you didn't say that. All right, let's go on to number 8. Number 8 is coffee. So particularly in Melbourne, they are coffee snobs. In fact, most Melbourne locals will tell you their coffee is better in Melbourne than Italy. Isn't that right, Ben?
Absolutely. Our coffee is the best in the world.
And why is that?
Because roasted a certain way, or we cook the beans. I don't know, Chris. It's just the best coffee in the world. Because it's so tasty. We just know how to make good coffee.
Because Ben said so. That's why it's the best. What I think is really, in particular, the coffee scene. It's all like espresso drinks, very much espresso, as opposed to American style drip coffee.
American style drip coffee is not my favorite, Chris.
No.
Sorry, buddy.
That's okay. I don't like it either, so you're not hurting my feelings. Number 9, the 9th reason to go to Australia is for the zoos. We've talked about koalas and kangaroos, but are there any other animals to see in Australia, Ben? And I had to play some video of koalas, because koalas are just so cuddly.
Yeah, no. I'm not a biologist, but yeah, platypuses are great.
Platypuses. Now I have a question. The plural of platypuses, is that like platypi?
Yeah, I think it's platypi.
Okay. And this is like, so like the cactus, the plural of cactus is cacti, right? And then, what's the plural of Jesus? Is like if you have like people like Jesus, right, that's it. So if it's like an Elvis impersonation party, but a Jesus impersonation party, then it's like a group of Jesus. All right.
What's a Chris? Is that a Chris I?
Ooh, yeah. Chris is a very interesting one if you do plural, because it's like Chris is, but if it's plural possessive, then you just do Chris, not Chris, comma, S, but like Chris and just an apostrophe with no S.
And the dash, yeah.
Yeah.
That's true.
Mm-hmm.
You got a difficult name, Chris.
It is challenging. That's right. So if people are going to visit zoos, what zoos do you think they should visit in Australia?
Yeah, mate. Well, Melbourne has a few great zoos. We've got Hillsville Sanctuary. We've got the Werribee Open Range Zoo, which is great. We've got the Melbourne Zoo. So those three zoos are fantastic to visit and all have obviously different animals to visit. I think Hillsville Sanctuary has a lot more of our native animals. It's great. The Werribee Open Range Zoo is exactly what I've said. It's an open range zoo, so you get to drive in little trucks, go in trucks, and look at all the African safari animals and so forth. And Melbourne Zoo has a cool meerkat enclosure. But there are some other cool zoos that I've been to, like Taronga Zoo, that's fantastic. And Australia Zoo is probably my favourite zoo, and that's in Queensland. And I really enjoyed Australia Zoo because of Steve Irwin and what they do with the crocodiles there and so forth. I think it's great. I like that zoo.
I think it's an interesting name to call it Australia Zoo. That would be like the equivalent of like the American Zoo or so. It's like, this is the American Zoo.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sure, I mean, and it's quite cheap too to visit a zoo. It's like if you're going to one of the Melbourne zoos, it's only $37 for an adult.
It's a good price.
Or $19 for a kid, so it's a good price.
OC Girl really liked the koala. She said the koala's so cute. And but this is when I ask people the question like, hey, where could you go hold a koala? And then I get this at Q2 says, I held a koala when I was 10 and it weed on me. So have you ever held a koala, Ben?
No, but I've held a monkey.
A monkey? Where did you hold a monkey?
Thailand.
Okay. How was holding a monkey?
Chain around its neck. Not very good. I like it because it's obviously there just to be a little bit of a toy for tourist pleasure only. Yeah, no, it was okay. He stayed there on me. But yeah, I've never held a koala, but I'm sure they'd be cuddly.
Yeah, so OC Girl asked that question, and obviously we know you haven't held it, but Q2 did. So Q2, was the koala cuddly when you held it? And Jake McShane answers the question about the plural of platypus. And Jake's bringing it to us from the dictionary. The plural of platypus is actually platypuses. So, very good. Thank you, Jake.
Cool. I like platypi.
Yeah, I do too. Nora asks if you ever got to see Steve, and I'm sure she's talking about Steve Irwin.
No, I never got to meet him, but I'm sure if I did, I would want him on my podcast. I really enjoyed Steve Irwin. I thought he was a great guy. But yeah, very sad what happened to him. It was a long time ago now. It was 2005 when he passed away. Yeah, or 2006, one of those. But yeah, I would have loved to have met him for sure. It would have been nice.
Tanner Wilson asks, what's the best way to get tickets to see Aussie Rules football games?
Well, usually you just go on to ticketmaster.com.au, I think, to get your tickets there. It could be another ticket agency, but if you go to afl.com.au, you'll be able to get your tickets there, or at least through something affiliated with the Australian Football League.
Chinmay asked this question earlier, and I forgot to bring it up on the screen, but Chinmay asks, are there any casinos in Australia?
Yeah, we've got heaps of casinos, unfortunately. We've got lots in Melbourne, Sydney, and every capital city is going to have a casino. I reckon we've got a pretty bad issue with gambling here in Australia, but that's just my opinion. I'm not a big fan of casinos. Although I would like to go to Las Vegas and check out the casinos there and maybe try and avoid some of those horrible hotels, Chris, that you spoke about.
Yes.
Or on your YouTube.
Those hotels are awesome. Not.
Mate, that's got 1 million views or something.
It does, yeah. It's like 1.5 million almost. I think something cool. Crazy. Yeah.
Oh, congratulations, 100,000 subscribers.
Oh, yeah. Thank you very much.
Fantastic. Congratulations, bud.
Woo! Yeah, actually, and so 100,000. Woo! I will be doing next week's live stream. Will be my 100,000 subscriber celebration. So definitely tune in next week for the live stream next Monday. I will be showing some footage never before seen on YouTube. People often ask me, Chris, how did you get started doing this YouTube thing? And so I'm going to show you some of the travel videos and things like that we put together that never made it to YouTube because YouTube wasn't around back then. So do stay tuned for that. All right.
Do I feature in any of those videos, my mate?
I did not know you before 2008. That would have been scary if I did. If you were in any of those videos, they'd be like some creepy spy videos or something. So
maybe they're creepy spy videos.
Yeah. All right. We've got 5 minutes left. I want to get in OC Girl's question, and then we'll do these last three real quick. OC Girl says, "How far away is New Zealand from Australia?" And Ben, don't answer. Don't. Well, actually, should we go to? No, that's number 11. So answer that in number 11. That's number 11. Let's do number 10. Number 10.
Yep.
Right here. What is this? This is a video of a tropical forest. So I hear that Australia is more than just like deserts and beaches, but it's got tropical forests and even skiing. Really? Does Australia have forests and snow?
Yes, they definitely do, Chris. You'll find north of Sydney there's tropical forest. So the further north you go of Sydney, the further tropical it gets, because Sydney's kind of subtropical climate. And obviously, if you were to follow that line right across, you go through halfway of South Australia and Western Australia. But anything north of that line where Sydney is, or a bit southern of Sydney, is all subtropical, tropical. And anything south of that line starts to get more temperate. So you have all the skiing areas, mainly in Victoria and Tasmania, as well as Mount Kosciuszko area in southern New South Wales. Mount Kosciuszko just happens to be the tallest mountain in Australia at 2,228 meters. So that's pretty high. And areas in Victoria you'd want to ski at would be like Mount Buffalo, Mount Buller, Mount Cotham, Falls Creek, and there's areas in Tassie, like I said before, that are skiable. So we do have our tropical forest and we do have our snowfields. It's great. It's a great place.
Never would have knew it. Never would have known it.
Yeah.
Knew it, known it.
No,
I'll have to ask Jake McShane whether knew it or known it is correct. Let's go back. Let's go back to OC Girl's question, because the 11th reason to visit Australia is because it's close to New Zealand, and I've never been to New Zealand, but it seems like all my friends have, and I'm jealous of all their pictures of the Hobbit Shire. But I'm not sure what else to do in New Zealand other than like pick up a Lord of the Rings tour. So Ben, how far away is New Zealand, and then what should somebody do when they go to New Zealand?
Well, I have New Zealand relatives. Shout out to them. Shout out to Christina and others. And New Zealand is kind of like a brother country or a sister country to Australia, because we kind of sound different except for a bit of a twang. The New Zealanders will speak like this, like sucks, hello, how are you? That's a New Zealand accent. And then Australians are more like this. But then if you kind of mix them together, you kind of get this Australia-New Zealand accent, which is kind of cool. But New Zealand's about 3 hours in the plane from Melbourne and about double that from Perth. So depending on where you're coming from, I think it's maybe 5,000 kilometres from Australia's eastern coastline. But I'm not sure. I've just pulled that out of the head, so that might be wrong.
All right.
Maybe it's a bit less.
Let's go to number 12, and the 12th reason to visit Australia is for the Australians. They're so friendly, they're so funny. Australians are like Ben. I mean, Ben is a great Australian, I have to admit, and I think their accent is great. So, Ben, what do you say about that?
Mate. Thank you.
Cheers, yeah.
Yeah, look, mate, I love my accent. Yeah, I'm going to start speaking like a proper Australian from now, mate. I love the accent. And g'day, Australia.
Very, very good. So I always do a giveaway on these live streams, and we're coming up to almost the end of our hour. So today we'll be giving away a pair of Yellow Production socks, and this is themed on the 100,000 subscribers. We were just talking about that. So my question to you all is, what day, like month, day, number, did I cross 100,000 subscribers in Los Angeles time. So whoever can tell me the day, the month, and the date as a number, the first person to tell me that will win a pair of Yellow Production socks shipped to them anywhere in the world. And definitely tune in next week for my 100,000 subscriber celebration. I'll be uploading a pre-video to that, which is like, maybe is it 10, 20, 17? I don't know. Some number of frequently asked questions. When I do these live streams, there's some questions I get over and over and over again. And so that will come out this Wednesday. And then next week is the 100,000 subscriber celebration. And if you want to follow Ben, tell people what you do and where they can hear more of you.
Sure. If you like my the tone of my accent, and if you like travel, then join me for the Travelman Podcast. It's on every podcast app you can find. It's on Spotify. It's on what else is on? If you look up Travelman Podcast on the internet, you'll come up. It's very easy to find. Travelman is one word. Then you got podcasts. I'm also Travelman Podcast on YouTube now, so I'm starting to put up some really crappy videos, really nothing like what Chris does, but they're okay, and they're just really short little things, so I wouldn't mind to have more than 12 subscribers. 100 would be nice. Maybe we can get 1,000 by the end of this video, Chris.
All right, let's do it. Well, I'll say about like videos not being great. And by the way, for those of you who said there were 3 people who said the dates that I crossed 100,000, and they're all wrong. Tanner said December 30th. Tanner, you're wrong. Yippee said 9 p.m. on February 1st. Nope, nice try. Chinmay said January 31st. Nope. Devin Duncan said February 1st. Nope. If you guys are having a hard time figuring this out, you can find it on my Facebook page. If you followed Yellow Productions on Facebook, I posted it. It was probably about 5 or 6 posts ago with the exact date. Actually, I had a contest for it, and whoever took a screenshot of exactly 100,000 subscribers, just like that. Is that going to focus? Let me get my face out of it, then it'll focus. 100,000 subscribers. Everybody who sent me a picture like this got a t-shirt. So I sent out I think 5 or 6 t-shirts. There were 5 or 6 people that got the exact 100,000 subscriber t-shirt. And if you're looking for Ben, all those places he said, I make it really easy for you. In the description of this video, you can just expand the description and you'll find all the links to Ben's podcasts where you could find it. And Jake McShane is the winner. But is he the winner? He is the winner. I'm trying to see if anybody said it before Jake. No, Jake, you win. All right.
Looks like you won.
7:21 a.m., January 27th. Very good. Whoa! All right, Ben, do you have any final words for the fabulous Yellow Productions viewers out there?
Just saying that I really enjoy these little videos that we do together, Chris. Hopefully we've got a lot more in the bank.
It's been a lot of fun.
Follow me on the podcast. So, yeah, I love it. And there's a lot of Chris content. A lot of Chris.
All right. Yeah, and as Ben said, there's some behind-the-scenes podcasts and things like that, so you can check those out as well. All right. Well, everybody, thank you very much for joining in. Ben, thank you for joining me all the way from Australia and telling us why we should visit Australia coming from an Aussie such as yourself. And for those of you that are watching, well, I won't say goodbye because I'll see you in the next video, be it Wednesday, Friday, or next Monday for the next live stream.
Thanks, all.
Well, I hope you enjoyed the podcast. Well, the YouTube live stream that I put into a podcast. I know there was it was a bit glitchy, so it sounded a little bit choppy and so forth, just as if we're on the Pacific Ocean and we've just hit an iceberg, which is that's impossible because the Pacific Ocean would never have icebergs. So we never hit an iceberg, okay, in the Pacific Ocean. But look, next time we're trying to get the live stream to sound even better. Thank you for listening. Chris and I love you. You can follow me on iTunes. You can follow me on any podcast app. I'm a Libsyn podcast, so thank you, Libsyn. And you can always follow me Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Twitter, where I'm Travelman Pod. Instagram, Travelman Podcast. Facebook, Ben the Travelman. I'm also on Stitcher, TuneIn Radio. I have a YouTube channel, Travelman Podcast. Just type that in. And the Travelman Podcast website, www.travelmanpodcast.com, and the email is travelmanpodcast@gmail.com. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.